On a quiet night at the Croglin Grange estate, the world seemed still. Emerging from the mist, a shadowy figure appeared. The Croglin Grange Vampire, gaunt and decayed, glided across the dew-laden grass. It reached a woman's house and slipped inside through the window. The creature hovered inches from hers, its breath rasping and foul. Before she could scream, its icy, clawed hand clamped over her mouth, silencing her cries in an instant. As the vampire drew back, blood stained its lips and jagged teeth. It straightened, its hollow eyes momentarily glancing at the woman's now pale and lifeless form. Satiated, it turned and moved toward the window, disappearing into the night without a sound.
Vampire tales tend to be associated with Central and Eastern Europe. But deep in the heart of the English countryside, nestled in the shadowy landscapes of Cumbria, lies the chilling tale of the Croglin Grange Vampire. A legend shrouded in mystery, fear, and the eerie silence of rural England. The story tells of a fiery-eyed beast that would rise from a crypt in a secluded churchyard. It crept through the darkness, invading manor houses, its gnashing teeth sinking into the necks of unsuspecting young women. These victims, haunted by an inexplicable urge, would feel an almost magnetic pull back to Croglin.
This chilling legend, known as the tale of the Croglin Vampire, unfolds as a twisted tapestry of horror. Villagers prying open crypts to destroy the undead, vampiric bats flitting eerily through churchyards, and lifeless corpses set ablaze near sacred holly bushes. The narrative even brims with bizarre elements like escaped asylum inmates, religious tensions boiling over, and, perhaps strangest of all, a rampage of circus monkeys across the Cumbrian hills. The story concludes with an eerie symbol of protection, a bricked-up window adorned with lucky horseshoes, a desperate attempt to bar similar creatures from ever crossing the threshold again. The story owes its wider fame to Augustus Hare in the late 19th century through his book, Story of My Life. Hare claimed to recount a true event, allegedly occurring decades earlier at Croglin Grange, a small estate in Cumbria. According to the tale, the estate was leased by the Fisher family to 3 siblings, Edward, Michael, and Amelia, seeking a peaceful countryside retreat. Little did they know, a nightmare would soon befall them. After moving in, the trio quickly won the hearts of their neighbors, both rich and poor, with their charm and kindness. They passed their first winter and spring in bliss, enjoying the social delights of the community. But as summer rolled in, bringing with it a relentless, sweltering heat, the tranquil facade of Croglin began to crack. One suffocatingly hot evening, the siblings retreated to the veranda after dinner, hoping for relief in the cooler night air. They watched as the moon bathed the lawn in silver light, the shadows of trees stretching across the grounds like dark sentinels. The beauty of the night lulled them into peace before they retired to their rooms. But Amelia, restless and unable to sleep, stared out at the moonlit scene from her bed. Her windows were closed but unshuttered, the stillness of the countryside making her feel safe, at least at first. As she gazed at the tranquil garden, 2 lights flickered near the line of trees by the churchyard. At first, she dismissed them as fireflies, but the lights began to move, weaving through the shadows and advancing toward the house. Amelia's curiosity turned to unease as the lights revealed themselves to be the glowing eyes of a figure, shambling out of the darkness. Her heart raced, her body frozen in fear as the creature drew closer. Just as Amelia managed to summon her courage and bolt for the door, a chilling sound froze her in place. Scratch, scratch, scratch at the window. Her eyes darted back, and there it was, a hideous face, brown and shriveled, with flaming eyes staring into her room. She stumbled back to her bed, unable to scream, while the creature began working at the lead holding the window in place. With horrifying precision, it pecked and scratched until the pane shattered, sending shards of glass to the floor. The beast's long bony fingers reached through the opening, unlatching the window and allowing it to climb inside. As it loomed over her, its gnarled hands twisted into her hair, yanking her head over the side of the bed. Amelia's silent terror gave way to a scream as the creature bit into her neck, drawing blood. Her brothers, roused by her cries, rushed to her room but found the door locked. Frantic, they forced it open just as the creature escaped, bounding across the lawn with enormous strides and vanishing over the churchyard wall. Amelia survived, though pale and shaken. Ever practical, she dismissed the attack as the work of a lunatic. Her brothers, however, remained unconvinced. To aid her recovery, they took her to Switzerland, where she regained her strength. But by autumn, Amelia insisted on returning to Croglin Grange. Despite her brother's reservations, she was determined not to let fear dictate her life. Winter passed peacefully, but spring brought a familiar dread. One night, Amelia was startled awake by the now unmistakable sound of scratching at her window. This time the hideous face peered in from the top of the pane, blazing eyes locked on hers. She screamed, and her brothers burst into action, pistols in hand. They chased the creature across the lawn, firing as it fled. One shot found its mark, striking the creature in the leg. Limping, it disappeared into the churchyard crypt. The next morning, the brothers rallied the local tenants. Together, they pried open the crypt's doors, revealing a scene of desecration. Shattered coffins and decayed remains littered the floor. Only one coffin remained mostly intact, its lid resting loosely on top. Inside lay a mummified corpse, its shriveled form eerily resembling the creature they had pursued. A fresh bullet, wound in its leg, confirmed their suspicions. It was the Croglin Vampire. Following local folklore, they dragged the vile cadaver to a holly tree in the churchyard. There they set it ablaze, the flames consuming its grotesque form. From that day forward, the terrors of Croglin ceased, and the Grange returned to its quiet, timeless existence. The stump of the holly tree remains as a silent witness to the legend of the Croglin Vampire. The characteristics of the Croglin Grange Vampire are far removed from the suave, charismatic creatures popularized in later vampire lore. Instead, this being exudes a primal, almost animalistic menace that chills the blood. Its appearance alone evokes a visceral fear. Gaunt and skeletal, it seems to be a walking embodiment of starvation. The creature's emaciated frame is wrapped in leathery, parchment-like skin, stretched tight over its bones, lending it the appearance of a mummified corpse that has risen from its tomb. Its complexion is unnaturally pale, as though all traces of life have been drained from it, while its sunken eyes are dark pits of malice. These eyes, deep-set and unblinking, seem to pierce directly into the soul, paralyzing its victims with terror. Unlike the piercing gaze of modern vampires that might seduce or mesmerize, the Croglin Vampire's stare is feral and predatory, a hunter sizing up its prey. The most disturbing aspect of its physical form is its unnaturally long fingers. Each digit tapers into sharp, claw-like nails, grotesque and unkempt, as though they have grown unchecked for centuries. These fingers are not just unsettling to behold, but are instruments of menace, scratching at windows, breaking glass, and reaching for their victims with chilling deliberation. The sound of those nails tapping against the pane in the dead of night is a harbinger of doom, a warning that the creature is near. The vampire's movements are no less horrifying. It does not glide gracefully like the elegant vampires of Gothic fiction, but moves with a predatory purpose, each step calculated and deliberate. There is a grotesque fluidity to its actions, as if its joints are unnaturally loose, allowing it to contort and twist in ways no living being should. Its gait is a haunting blend of human and animal, a stark reminder that this creature is neither entirely dead nor fully alive. What sets the Croglin Vampire apart from other undead creatures is its raw, decayed ferocity. It is not an immortal aristocrat dressed in finery, but a grotesque manifestation of death and rot. It lacks the veneer of sophistication often associated with vampires, instead embracing the full horror of its decayed form. It is not here to charm or seduce, but to hunt, consume, and instill fear. This is a vampire stripped of glamour and romance, a creature that embodies decay and death in their rawest forms. It is a nightmare made flesh, a predator born from the darkest corners of folklore, and a chilling reminder of our primal fear of the grave. The haunting of Croglin Grange is shrouded in mystery, with theories and legends offering chilling explanations for the vampire's presence. Some believe the creature to be an ancient revenant, a restless spirit condemned to wander the earth as punishment for its sins in life. This idea is rooted in the notion that extreme acts of cruelty, betrayal, or sacrilege might prevent a soul from finding peace, leaving it cursed to rise again in a decayed and monstrous form. As a revenant, the Croglin Vampire could embody centuries of unatoned guilt, seeking revenge or sustenance in the living as a twisted reflection of its unfulfilled existence. Another interpretation suggests the involvement of dark magic. Folklore often speaks of necromancers and occult rituals capable of reanimating the dead, binding their rotting forms to the world of the living for sinister purposes. In this version, the vampire may not be acting of its own volition, but as an unwilling pawn enslaved by forces that tore it from eternal rest. The unnatural state of its body, leathery skin, skeletal frame, and animalistic behavior supports the idea that something profoundly wrong disrupted its natural death, leaving behind a creature neither fully alive nor completely dead. The location of Croglin Grange itself provides fertile ground for these tales. The estate is said to have been built atop ancient burial grounds where time and human folly may have disturbed the graves of the long dead. Such desecration is often depicted in folklore as a catalyst for hauntings, where the angered spirits of the dead lash out at the living for their transgressions. If the vampire was one of the souls interred in those ancient grounds, it may have been awoken by disturbances caused by renovations, excavations, or even careless disregard for the sanctity of the site. There are also whispers that the land surrounding Croglin Grange holds a deep and ancient darkness, a lingering malevolence that seeps into the soil and infects those buried there. This theory implies that the haunting is not the result of a specific curse, but rather the manifestation of an inherent evil tied to the land itself. Croglin Grange, isolated and steeped in history, might have been a perfect breeding ground for such dark energies to fester, eventually giving rise to the vampire that terrorized its inhabitants. Regardless of the specific cause, the haunting of Croglin Grange represents a confluence of fear, superstition, and the unknown. Whether the creature was a revenant cursed by its sins, a reanimated corpse brought back by dark rituals, or the vengeful spirit of a disturbed burial ground, its presence underscores humanity's age-old fear of death and the terrifying possibility that it might not always be the end. To protect themselves from the Croglin Grange Vampire, local English communities turned to a mixture of traditional folklore remedies, practical defenses, and superstitious practices. These measures reflected both their fear of the supernatural and their deep-rooted beliefs in the power of ritual and symbolism to ward off evil. The story of the Croglin Grange Vampire begins with the creature breaking into a house through a window, a detail that resonated deeply with the fears of rural households. To prevent such occurrences, residents would fortify their homes by reinforcing windows and doors with iron locks and bars, which were believed to be effective barriers against evil entities. Glass panes were often covered or layered with additional shutters to prevent entry, particularly during the night. English folklore suggests that symbols of faith and purity were powerful tools for warding off supernatural threats. Residents of the Croglin area might have hung crosses or crucifixes near entry points, such as windows and doors, to repel the vampire. Holy water, blessed by a priest, was also sometimes sprinkled around the perimeter of a home as a sacred boundary that no unholy creature could cross. Given the belief that the Croglin Grange Vampire might have been a revenant, a corpse cursed to rise from its grave, many communities placed significant importance on proper burial rituals. Graves were consecrated with prayers, and sometimes encircled with iron fencing to keep the dead at rest. It was common to place heavy stones or slabs atop graves to physically prevent a corpse from emerging. Additionally, disturbed burial grounds were often reconsecrated by clergy to banish lingering malevolent forces. After the initial attack on Croglin Grange, local communities likely adopted a watchful approach to their surroundings. Villagers would form informal night patrols or keep vigil, especially during times of heightened fear. Men were often armed with farm tools or firearms, prepared to confront any intruding figure they believed to be the vampire. The reliance on communal protection reinforced a sense of safety and shared responsibility. In extreme cases, when a suspected vampire was believed to be haunting the area, English folklore often recommended the exhumation of the offending corpse. Once unearthed, signs such as an unusually preserved body, fresh blood around the mouth, or unnatural stiffness were interpreted as proof of vampirism. The corpse would then be subjected to specific rituals to neutralize the threat. Common methods included driving a wooden stake through the heart, decapitating the body, or burning it to ashes, actions thought to destroy the revenant's ability to rise again. Although garlic is more commonly associated with Eastern European vampire folklore, English communities also employed herbs believed to have protective properties. Sprigs of rosemary, hawthorn, or wild thyme might be hung around doorways or carried on one's person to deter supernatural creatures. These plants were thought to have purifying effects, driving away evil spirits and protecting the living from harm. Church authorities were sometimes called upon to address supernatural fears directly. Priests might perform exorcisms or bless the homes and lands where sightings or attacks were reported. These ceremonies were meant to banish evil spirits and restore peace to the area. Community-wide prayers or gatherings were also organized to seek divine protection against the vampire. By blending practical measures with deep-seated superstitions, the people of Croglin and its surrounding areas sought to protect themselves from the terror of the vampire. These practices not only reinforced the community's belief in their ability to combat supernatural forces, but also provided a sense of control and unity in the face of the unknown. The legend of the Croglin Grange Vampire has found a unique, albeit subtle, place in modern culture, weaving its chilling tale into various forms of media. While it has not achieved the widespread fame of Dracula or Varney the Vampire, its eerie, narrative and grotesque antagonist have inspired numerous creative interpretations, shaping the portrayal of vampires in niche Gothic fiction and beyond. In literature, the haunting atmosphere of Croglin Grange has served as fertile ground for Gothic tales centered on rural terror. Writers have often drawn upon the legend's vivid imagery: the isolated estate, the tapping of long, gaunt fingers on the windowpane, and the predatory movements of the creature, to craft stories that capture the unease of being hunted by something neither alive nor dead. Unlike the suave, romanticized vampires popularized by later fiction, the Croglin Vampire represents a more primal and grotesque terror, a creature defined by decay and death rather than charm. This stark departure has resonated with authors seeking to explore the darker, more monstrous aspects of vampire lore. The influence of the Croglin Grange Vampire extends into visual storytelling as well. Films set in remote, haunted estates often echo the legend's core elements: the oppressive isolation of the countryside, the sense of vulnerability as night falls, and the monstrous figure that defies conventional understanding. These stories lean into the dread of intrusion, with characters forced to confront an unrelenting alien presence. Notably, the Croglin legend has also contributed to the depiction of vampires as feral and grotesque in some horror films, serving as a counterpoint to the polished aristocratic portrayal seen in works like Dracula. Even in modern gaming and art, subtle nods to the Croglin Grange Vampire can be found. Video games featuring horror or supernatural themes occasionally incorporate creatures with unsettling, elongated features and a penchant for stalking their victims in dimly lit, rural settings. These elements evoke the vampire's unsettling description, allowing players to experience the same creeping dread that permeates the original tale. Similarly, Artists specializing in Gothic or macabre styles have drawn upon the legend's imagery, creating works that capture the chilling essence of the Croglin Vampire's gaunt, decayed form and haunting presence. Despite its relative obscurity, compared to more mainstream vampire legends, the Croglin Grange Vampire endures as a chilling example of British folklore. Its influence continues to shape modern interpretations of the vampire mythos, particularly in works that prioritize terror and monstrosity over romance and allure. This enduring presence demonstrates the power of folklore to inspire and evolve, keeping the legend alive in the shadows of contemporary culture. Over time, the Croglin Vampire story has evolved, fueled by local folklore and eager storytellers. Skeptics have questioned its authenticity, dismissing it as an embellished tale woven from the rich tapestry of Victorian Gothic horror. Others have accused Hare of borrowing too liberally from the era's dime novels and penny dreadfuls, yet the story persists. Researchers have combed the countryside, examined faded property deeds and interviewed locals, searching for clues that might anchor the legend in reality. While the veracity of the Croglin Grange Vampire remains debated, its tale continues to send shivers down the spines of those who hear it. Whether a cautionary tale or a genuine account of the supernatural, it reminds us that even in the most serene settings, shadows may conceal unspeakable.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.